Imagine this. Someone looks you dead in the eye and drops a line designed to cut through your armor. It could be a subtle jab. Wow, you're really not as sharp as I thought. Or a heavy-handed guilt trip. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. Your chest tightens. Your brain scrambles. And in that split second, you feel cornered. Most people crack right here. They defend. They explain. They justify. And in doing so, they hand over power. But here's the secret. Manipulation only works if you play the game. If you refuse to play, if you stop reacting on their terms, the whole strategy collapses. And that's exactly what I'm about to show you. Not through aggression, not through shouting matches, but through something far more dangerous. Silence, stillness, and surgical words so minimal they cut deeper than any rant ever could. Because here's the truth. The most untouchable people in the world don't win by arguing. They win by making the other person unravel in their own trap. And before you think this is just theory, no, psychologists, negotiators, even interrogators know this. The one who controls the pace of a conversation controls its outcome. Think about your own life. How many times have you walked away from an argument thinking, I shouldn't have said that, or replayed the moment in your head wishing you had stayed calmer, sharper, more collected? We've all been there. And it's not weakness. It's training. We were trained to respond, to explain, to prove ourselves. But manipulators weaponize that conditioning. That ends today. Because in this video, I'm going to give you 6 powerful tactics that flip the script. They require no yelling, no elaborate comebacks, no wasting energy. Just silence, presence, and psychological precision. And once you master these, something remarkable happens. You become untouchable. Not because people stop coming at you, but because nothing they throw can pierce your calm. So let's begin where the battle really starts. Not with what they say, but with how you choose to respond. And the first weapon is not a word at all. Here's the paradox. The strongest response is no response at all. Silence. It feels unnatural, even unbearable, because everything in you screams, say something, defend yourself, explain. And yet, silence is the move that flips the entire power dynamic. Picture this. You're in a meeting. A colleague throws a jab at you in front of everyone. Maybe you're just not detail-oriented enough for this project. The room tenses. All eyes shift to you. They expect a reaction, a counterattack, some kind of flustered defense. Instead, you lean back in your chair. You look at them. Just one calm, steady look. And you say, absolutely nothing. That silence spreads. People start to squirm. Not you, them. The accuser begins to over-explain. They fill the void. They reveal their insecurity. And the room quietly reassigns authority, not to the loudest voice, but to the calmest presence. Why does this work? Because silence is not absence. Silence is pressure. Humans are wired to crave resolution in social tension. When you stay silent, they feel the tension, not you. And the longer you hold it, the heavier it becomes. Until eventually, they break it for you. Let's flip the setting. Someone close to you says, if you really cared, you'd do this for me. That's manipulation disguised as guilt. Most people rush to argue. Of course I care. Haven't I always? But the moment you explain, you've stepped into their frame. Now try silence. Not angry silence. Not sulking silence. Calm, still, deliberate silence. They wait for your defense. They expect you to cave. But when nothing comes, their tactic crumbles. Because guilt only works when you agree to carry it. Here's what's happening under the surface. Silence denies manipulators feedback. Without it, they can't adjust their strategy. Silence creates ambiguity. Did their words hit? Did you dismiss them? They can't tell. And silence shifts the burden. Now they must scramble to clarify, to justify, to fill the void. In short, silence makes their weapon backfire. Now, I know what you're thinking. But won't silence make me look weak? Not if you pair it with presence. Keep your body relaxed, not rigid. Keep your eyes steady, not darting. Keep your breathing calm, not shallow. That combination transforms silence into dominance. It stops being passive. It becomes active restraint. Even great leaders have used this. There are records of negotiators sitting through verbal attacks without saying a word, forcing their opponents to talk themselves into corners. One king was described as terrifying in his silence because no one ever knew what he was thinking, only that he never looked shaken. And that's the key. Silence unsettles because it makes you unreadable. So remember, silence is not retreat. It's not weakness. It's the first weapon in your arsenal. But sometimes silence isn't enough. Sometimes you need to reflect the attack right back without raising your voice. And that's where the second tactic comes in. Here's a truth most people never realize. When someone attacks you, they're not really exposing you. They're exposing themselves. The trick is learning how to turn their accusations into a mirror. Because once you do, every insult becomes self-revelation. Imagine you're in the office again. A colleague smirks and says in front of the team, "You're so disorganized. We're always cleaning up after you." The instinct is to defend yourself. "No, I'm not. Look at the files, the deadlines I've hit." But the moment you explain, you're dancing to their rhythm. Now, try the mirror. Pause. Smile slightly. Tilt your head. And say, "Interesting you see it that way." That's it. 5 words. But those words bounce the spotlight right back at them. Suddenly, they look defensive. Because now everyone wonders, why are they so concerned about organization? Is this really about them? Why does the mirror work? Because accusations are projections. Most people attack others in the exact places they feel insecure. The one calling you lazy secretly fears their own lack of discipline. The one calling you fake is terrified of being exposed themselves. The one calling you weak is masking their own fragility. By reflecting it back calmly, you don't deny the attack. You reveal the attacker. Take relationships. Suppose someone says, "You're always overreacting." Instead of firing back, instead of proving your calmness with words, try this. A slow breath, a steady look, and then, "It sounds like this matters a lot to you." That's not defense. That's reflection. Suddenly, they're the one under the microscope. They have to explain why they are so worked up. And while they scramble, you remain untouchable. This tactic works because human beings are wired for attribution. When tension rises and you don't absorb the hit, the crowd looks at the aggressor. Their anger becomes the story. Their emotions betray them. And here's the twist. The calmer you stay, the louder their insecurity echoes. Picture this on a bigger stage. A panel debate, a classroom, a live stream. Someone throws shade at you. Honestly, you don't even know what you're talking about. Instead of proving your expertise with a monologue, you let a beat of silence hang. Then you reply, evenly. "If that's what you believe, that tells me a lot." No raised voice. No sharp comeback. Just a mirror. The audience catches it. They see your composure. And without realizing it, they side with you, because you're calm while the other person is desperate to land blows. Here's how to execute the mirror with precision. Pause first. That tiny delay makes your response feel deliberate. Keep your tone level. No sarcasm. No edge. Just calm clarity. Make it short. One line is enough. Mirrors are powerful because they're minimal. The less you say, the more their own words echo back at them. So first, you mastered silence. Now, you've learned reflection. But there's still one layer higher. Because sometimes, silence and mirrors aren't enough. Sometimes, you need to hold your ground so firmly that your very presence becomes unshakable. And that's where the next tactic comes in. Here's the secret no one tells you. Sometimes, the most powerful move isn't what you say, it's what you don't. Because true power isn't loud. It doesn't argue. It doesn't scramble to prove itself. It just sits still and makes the world adjust. Picture a heated boardroom. Everyone's talking over each other, voices rising, hands waving. And in the corner, one person sits quietly, straight-backed, calm. At first, no one notices them. But as the chaos builds, the silence becomes magnetic. Eyes drift toward the one person who isn't scrambling for air. When they finally speak, just one line, delivered with calm certainty, the entire room resets. Why? Because their stillness created contrast. This is the paradox of authority. The less reactive you are, the more weight your reactions carry. People are wired to notice contrast. If everyone is loud, silence becomes the loudest sound in the room. If everyone is emotional, composure becomes irresistible. This is how stillness generates gravity. It's not passive. It's strategic. Now take it outside. Two strangers argue on the street. One is yelling, jabbing fingers, spitting insults. The other? Standing tall, arms loose, breathing slow. The crowd around them doesn't think, "Wow, the loud guy must be right." They think, "Why is the quiet one so unshaken?" And the louder the aggressor gets, the more ridiculous they look. Meanwhile, the quiet one radiates control without lifting a finger. This works because human beings crave leadership signals. Confidence isn't shown by defending yourself. It's shown by refusing to be dragged into someone else's storm. Every second you stay calm while someone unravels, you send a silent message. I don't need to prove myself. My presence is enough. And here's the kicker. People watching unconsciously side with composure. Not because of logic, but because composure feels safe. Now let's shift online. A heated comment thread. Someone hurls a wall of insults at you. Most people type back paragraphs. But what happens when you don't? When you leave their words floating unanswered or respond with a single, measured sentence? The audience scrolling by doesn't think, "Wow, you got destroyed." They think, "Why are you so calm when someone else is unraveling?" Even online, silence creates aura. Here's how to project this presence in practice. Control your body first. Shoulders down. Breathing slow. Movements deliberate. Let pauses work for you. A 2-second silence after someone's rant feels like thunder. Keep words minimal. A calm, noted, or "that's one way to see it," can outweigh a 10-minute speech. Stillness is strategy. Silence is stagecraft. Imagine you're on trial in the court of public opinion. Dozens of eyes fixed on you. Someone tries to bait you into exploding. If you stay centered, no twitch, no rush, their attacks boomerang. Because suddenly, you don't just look calm. You look untouchable. That's the difference between composure and power. So first, you learn silence. Then, you learn the mirror. Now, you've discovered the aura of stillness. But what happens when you combine all three? When silence, reflection, and presence fuse into one seamless force? Here's the twist most people miss. It's not enough to withstand attacks. Real mastery is when every strike against you becomes a strike against the attacker. This is the art of redirection, the martial art of psychology. Think about judo. The fighter doesn't resist force with force. They guide it, flip it, let the opponent's momentum destroy their balance. Now apply that outside the dojo. When someone attacks you with words, accusations, or mockery, you don't fight back. You redirect. Their anger, their exaggeration, their clumsy attack, it all circles back to them. Imagine this. A coworker bursts into a meeting, accusing you of dropping the ball on a project. Everyone turns to see how you'll respond. Most people would rush to defend themselves, explain, deny. But you? You simply tilt your head and say calmly, "That's an interesting perspective. Can you walk us through your reasoning?" Now the spotlight shifts. They're forced to expand their accusation. And with every word, the cracks show, exaggerations, missing details, shaky confidence. You didn't fight them. You let them expose themselves. This works because accusations thrive on heat. They need you to react, to fuel the fire. When you redirect, you strip the heat away. Suddenly, the accuser isn't battling you anymore. They're battling their own credibility. Picture a party. Someone tries to embarrass you with a joke at your expense. Instead of defending or laughing nervously, you smile and reply, "Funny, tell me more." Now the room watches them struggle. Because their joke, once redirected, reveals more about their need for attention than about you. Everyone sees it. Everyone feels it. And without lifting a finger, you've turned the tables. Here's how to master this. Ask questions, not defenses. Why do you think that? Can you explain further? Use curiosity as a shield. Genuine or fake curiosity keeps you unflappable. Let silence do the heavy lifting. The longer they scramble, the more the audience judges them, not you. Redirection is elegant because it requires almost nothing from you, yet everything from them. Now let's go digital. You post something online. Someone replies with venom. Instead of replying in kind, you comment back. "Thanks for sharing your view." What makes you feel that strongly? Half the time, they don't answer. The other half, their response makes them look unhinged. And to the silent audience scrolling, You look unbothered, curious, untouchable. This is redirection, where every attack turns inward, where the storm collapses on the one who created it. And here's the secret. Once people realize they can't land a hit without hurting themselves, they stop trying. We've gone from silence, to mirrors, to presence, to aura, and now to turning attacks into fuel. The question is, what comes next? Because power isn't just about defense anymore. It's about sculpting an aura so strong that you don't just redirect attacks. You start bending reality itself. Here's the real shift. Power isn't only about silence or defense. It's about creating an atmosphere so magnetic that people align themselves with you without even realizing it. This is where presence turns into command. Not loud, not forceful, but undeniable. Think of the last time someone walked into a room and changed its energy instantly. No words spoken, no gestures made, and yet everyone adjusted. Voices softened, attention shifted, eyes followed. That's not luck. That's cultivated presence. And presence is the ultimate psychological weapon. Imagine a heated meeting. Colleagues are arguing, voices rising, chaos brewing. Then you sit back, lean into the chair, and wait. No rushing, no interruptions. When you finally speak, slow, measured, deliberate, the whole table falls silent. Your calm becomes the new rhythm. Your voice defines the tempo. This is how presence bends reality. You stop chasing influence, and instead, influence comes to you. Why does this work? Because humans are wired to seek stability in chaos. In every group, there's an unconscious search for the anchor, the person who won't be shaken. When you embody that anchor, you don't just win arguments. You rewrite the emotional script of the entire room. At a party, you're not the loudest. You're not chasing attention. But the way you stand, the pauses in your speech, the ease in your smile, it forces people to recalibrate around you. Others try too hard. You don't try at all. That paradox creates intrigue. And intrigue always pulls power toward you. Here's how to engineer this presence. Slower movements. Fast movements signal anxiety. Stillness signals control. Vocal pacing. Speak slightly slower than the room's average. It makes people lean in. Eye contact and silence. Don't rush to fill gaps. Let the pause speak for you. Anchoring posture. Shoulders open, back aligned, feet grounded. The body teaches the mind. Presence isn't performance. It's discipline made visible. And yes, this translates online. Notice how some people post rarely, but every time they do, it shakes the room. They don't flood the feed. They drop words like stones into water, and the ripples keep spreading. That's digital presence. Not constant noise, but chosen silence broken at the perfect moment. Presence is more than a tactic. It's when your silence isn't emptiness, it's gravity. You don't just exist in the world. You bend it around you. And once people start recalibrating to your presence, you're no longer reacting to reality. You're shaping it. All the silence, the redirection, the composure, the presence, they've been building to this. Because true power isn't about reacting. It isn't even about influencing. It's about defining. When your words, your energy, your very stillness becomes the frame through which everyone else sees reality. This is the final stage. This is when power stops being something you fight for and starts being something you are. Picture this. In a debate, two people are clashing, throwing arguments back and forth. Then you step in, not to argue, not to raise your voice, but to define the terms. One sentence. Calm, clear, and suddenly, the entire debate reorganizes itself around your framing. The audience, the opposition, even the moderator, they're all now living in your definition. That's the definition effect. Think about history's great leaders, thinkers, icons. They rarely won by shouting louder. They won by creating language, images, and ideas that the world couldn't escape. A single phrase that became a movement. A quiet gesture that became a symbol. A calm refusal that changed an empire. Power at its highest form is narrative control. And once you hold narrative, you hold perception. And perception is reality. Humans don't just respond to truth, they respond to frames. Whoever defines the frame, defines the truth. If silence is your shield, presence your gravity, then definition is your crown. It's the invisible law people follow without even questioning it, even in daily life. In friendships, the person who sets the tone, humor, seriousness, calm, defines the interaction. In relationships, the one who calmly states, "This is what matters," shapes the dynamic. At work, the colleague who reframes chaos into clarity becomes the unofficial leader. You don't need a throne to rule. You just need definition. How do you practice definition? Reframe conflict. Instead of denying accusations, redefine them. It says more about you than me. Set emotional baselines. People match your calm or your intensity. Control your baseline, and you control the room. Speak in distilled truths. Long explanations invite argument. One clear line becomes unquestionable. Turn silence into punctuation. Say less. Pause more. Let others fill the silence within your frame. Online, definition is just as powerful. In a sea of noise, you don't need endless posts or constant shouting. You drop one clear idea, one sharp statement, and it spreads because it simplifies chaos into clarity. People don't remember the noise. They remember the definition. So here's the truth. Silence protected you. Redirection defended you. Presence drew power to you. But definition? It crowns you. Because when you define reality, you no longer have to fight for position. Others fight within the world you've already drawn. That is the final step. That is the invisible throne. So remember, you don't have to shout. You don't have to chase. You don't even have to defend. Silence, presence, and definition, these aren't tricks. They are the architecture of unshakable power. And once you master them, you'll realize power isn't loud. It's quiet. It's invisible. And it's yours.